Well, thanks for having me up. It was a nice drive up. I was hoping to have some warm weather up here, but I guess not. I'm going to talk today about a project I've been doing, working with UNEP, United Nations Environmental Program on. Been trying to get it going. Well, it's been in the works for about 2 years. We finally got funding last December. December a year ago. There's been civil wars and all kinds of things happening. But let me just start the slideshow then. Okay, all of you know about the Anthropocene. This is a major project for the GUND. But humans have altered Earth so much that scientists say a new epoch in the planet's geologic history has begun. You know all this stuff, I think. Changes in climate, changes in ocean acidification, dramatic decreases in biodiversity, and on and on. I mean, it's really depressing. And so there's sort of two pieces of this I've been looking at. One piece with the colleague Lisi Kroll on human ultrasociality. And the question that sort of drove this is, well, everybody knows, or not everybody, but it's pretty clear what we're doing and that it's likely to lead to catastrophe somewhere or down the line. So why can't we do anything about it? And so this is the ultrasociality part. But the other part is I kept asking myself in my old age, well, what can I actually do? So I've been trying to get involved more and more with things like the rewilding project that some of you may have heard of. So there really are some really beautiful areas, you can't say untouched by humans, but really wild natural areas. And these are being chewed up, and the Sudd Marsh is one of these. So we're trying to use this sort of a case study, what can be done, what positive can be done to protect these areas and make the case that it has value not only in terms of environmental protection, but also in terms of development. Okay. The amazing thing, I'm going to sort of get back to the Anthropocene, is most of this has happened within my lifetime, since the end of World War II, 1950 or so. CO2 has increased by about 100 parts per million, again, since 1950. I mean, that's just amazing. I mean, in the 2 million years that humans have been on Earth, depending on what you call human, the fluctuation was, as I understand it, something like 40 parts per million around the baseline of, 240, I think? So down 40, you're in an ice age, up 40 parts per million, you're in a really warm area. And so this is just incredible. Human population, when I was born, it's about 3 billion. Now it's over 7 billion. World projection is probably 11 billion, unless some catastrophe happens. This is a study just came out by the World Wildlife Fund. They estimate that 50% of the total number of vertebrates have disappeared in this 40-year period. 1970 to 2010. It's numbers of animals. I mean, in all populations. It's just incredible. And nobody, I guess people hear about it, but it somehow doesn't. What can we do? People sort of throw up their hands. I don't know. Okay, so it's clear that current policies are not working. Standard economic policies and unfortunately, much of ecological economics and policies are based on correcting market failure. Sort of get the prices right, and rational consumers will correctly allocate natural capital. And I hope I'm stepping on some toes here, so I'm ready to argue. And I'm not saying that that the price of fossil fuels shouldn't be higher, or that in some cases people should be given monetary incentives to conserve wild areas. But it's just, it's almost a Band-Aid when you look at these larger things that are happening. But the problems, again, with a lot of this is based on standard welfare economics, which has a lot of problems. Environmental problems are reduced to static allocation at a point in time. The starting point is an isolated individual with no social context, no environmental context. And especially the problem of discounting. I've written a lot about that. But it's really based on a financial investment model. If you have a chunk of money and you want to invest it optimally, stocks, bonds, land, whatever people with money do with it, I really wouldn't know. But it's just not a proper thing to do if you're talking about society as a whole and the future of the human species, which we are. And we call this approach evolutionary, and we're particularly interested in path dependency and contingent alternatives. So, and again, even in ecological economics is maybe turning the corner back, but there's really minimal appreciation of the conflict between the needs of the global economy and the well-being of individual humans. Okay, I've been working a lot with an evolutionary biologist, David Sloan Wilson, and there's a workshop in Germany in beginning of February, and I met this woman, Mariana Mazzucato, which I never heard of before. But she was really amazing, and she was really making a strong case for top-down strong government policies, which you don't hear enough of. She had this great quote by Keynes: "The important thing for government is not to do things which individuals are doing already, and to do them a little better or a little worse, but to do those things which are present." It should be or, no, not done. No, that's okay. At present, are not done at all. The problem is that I think the left really isn't making a strong enough case for the successes of government intervention. How many of you heard of the Solyndra case? I think the solar energy thing. The government gave $500 million to this solar startup company, and it went bankrupt. So this was part of the stimulus package. And of course, conservatives jumped all over that. Look, the government can't do the right thing. It's bound to fail. The government can't pick winners. Okay, but there were two cases or two companies that the government helped. $500 million. Anyone know what the other one was? Okay, it was Tesla. So, which was a roaring success, and but the government somehow they didn't step up and say, look, this is what happened. So she argues, Mariana argues, that you really need to look at these investments in social enterprises, social things. It's like a portfolio. Some are going to fail and some are going to succeed. As a matter of fact, the government had the right to buy Tesla shares, 3 million Tesla shares at $2 a share. And it didn't do it. And of course, the shares are now, I think, $200 a share. So that could have recouped the cost of it. So she really, again, makes a strong case for active government policy to do things that the market can't do. All right, I'm already getting off the track here. They use the Sudd marshes and the southern Sudan as a case study to look at these things: irreversibility, path dependence, recognize the conflict between markets and human needs. Okay, South Sudan is a brand new country. It was part of Sudan until 2011. There's a referendum to break off from Sudan. It was supported by 99% of the population. And there's a lot going on. The sort of north-south conflict, Muslim-Christian conflict. And oil, of course, is always in everything. South Sudan is about the size of Texas. The Sudd Wetland is one of the largest freshwater wetlands in the world, home to probably the largest migration of large animals in the world, larger than the Serengeti. The Serengeti, the migration of wildebeest has declined to, it was about 1.5 million. I think now it's 600,000. They think there's a kind of a large antelope in the Sudd called a cob that they think is about 1.5 million. So be tremendous potential, things like ecotourism and other kinds of sustainable development. It's home to over 1 million tribal people who depend on the marsh for their livelihood. If you've ever taken an anthropology class, you've probably studied the Dinka and the Nuer and this cattle culture. It was declared a Ramsar site by the UN in 2006. Okay, the capital is Juba, and my colleague and I, Hannah Slang, were in Juba in January. Again, there's still a conflict going on. We're hoping to do a flyover of the marsh, but it's just too dangerous. But we did meet with government officials, people at the University of Juba, and the people there really, they really want to preserve the marsh. They see it as a kind of national identity. So this is not just sort of Western values imposed on developing people who want to get rich. I mean, they really were emphatic about wanting to protect it. And it faces a number of threats that I'll talk about. Okay, I'm going to show you some photographs, and when you look at these, think about the value of the marsh. What is the value? Cultural value, aesthetic value, the economic value. Does it have economic value? Could you put a monetary value on it? And if so, how would you do that? So this is the White Nile. The White Nile comes out of Uganda and goes into this flat area and spreads out. The marsh shrinks and grows seasonally, but an important function of it is to have a steady flow coming out of the marsh. It starts again around Bor is where it starts, and the city up north bordering Sudan is called Makalo. So by the time it comes out there, the flow out's pretty steady. And this is important because the Blue Nile coming out of Ethiopia is also a major source of water for the Nile downstream, but the flow varies a lot seasonally. So one of the effects of the Sudd is to stabilize the flow going into the Nile downstream. There's a wet season and a dry season. I think this is the dry season, still pretty wet. But their villages, people sort of plant crops for a few months and have villages, and the whole culture and sort of the movement of cattle and the whole economy is really based around the rise and fall of the Sudd. Parts of it there are forested actually. The parts of it, this area, are dry, and there are populations of really important species like chimpanzees, and supposed to be like 7,000 of subspecies of elephants there. There's these things. These pictures are from World Conservation Society flyover. Yeah, this you can really see the villages when they're in the marsh. The area supposedly is just teeming with fish. There's a guy at UNEP who's from the northern part of Kenya, and he's traveled through the Sudd, and he said he was just amazed at the number. You can just almost put your hand in the water and pull out a fish, he was saying. So it'd have a lot of potential as sustainable fishery, again, if properly regulated.
Is that wet or dry?
I don't know. I should know that.
In the wet season?
Do
they leave in the wet season, or?
They move around. Parts of it in the wet season, again, is the thing expands, about doubles in size. So they have to leave parts of it, but I'm not sure if they do it in the same area or move long distances or so on. I think I would, from again what little I know, I think they pretty much stay in a particular area, fairly large area, but they go to the highlands and then come back down in the dry season. Yes, there's some pictures of fish. These are the incredible pictures, National Geographic pictures you can look at online. But again, the whole culture is really built around cattle. If you read the accounts of some of the anthropologists, each person has his own what's called an identity cow or a naming cow that's supposed to represent your characteristics. And they decorate the horns and all that. I think it was Melville Herskovitz who studied the area, and he said he learned the language and spent a year there, and said he got so sick of hearing about cows. I mean, that's all the men talked about. Even when they started talking about girls, the conversation would quickly go back to cows. So,
How many cows ago what?
That's a funny question. I was at the hotel we were staying at in Nairobi with my wife, and the doorman, I started talking to the doorman, and he was saying he was going to get married, and he told me how many cows he was going to have to give up for his wife, 20, 30 cows.
Oh, that's
And yes, I think it's a lot.
I was just in Tanzania, and it was 17
Yeah.
years ago, right?
So yeah,
That was
yeah. But he asked me how many cows I paid for my wife. And, I didn't know. I didn't know what to say. My wife and I have been together since high school. She's been a really good wife. I didn't want to say no cows.